The man charged in the 2022 July 4th parade mass shooting in a suburb of Chicago is expected to represent himself at trial. 7 people were killed and dozens more wounded when authorities say Robert Crimo opened fire from a rooftop in Highland Park, Illinois. Following the shooting, Crimo left the scene and drove to Madison, where authorities believe he considered carrying out a similar attack at a parade in Middleton. Crimo has pled not guilty to 117 charges. The judge repeatedly asked Crimo if he understood the consequences of representing himself. He replied that he understood he will not have access to an attorney or assistance from the court. His trial is set to start in February.